Secret Mountain Fort Awesome. This surreal, gross-out cartoon epitomized everything wrong with Cartoon Network's creative direction in the 2010s. The show followed 5 hideous monsters living in a fort, engaging in the most disgusting activities imaginable. Critics and viewers found it completely unappealing, and it lasted only 1 season before being mercifully canceled. The animation style was deliberately ugly, the characters were unlikable, and every episode felt like a dare to see how repulsive they could make children's television. This wasn't edgy or clever like Ren and Stimpy. It was just bad. The show represented CN's desperate attempt to recapture gross-out success without understanding what made those shows work. Secret Mountain Fort Awesome had shock value without substance, proving that disgusting humor alone couldn't carry a series. The failure damaged Cartoon Network's reputation with parents and showed how far the network had fallen from their golden age of creative, intelligent programming. It was a prime example of executives greenlighting projects based on surface-level trends rather than genuine creative vision. Mike, Lou, and Og. This adventure comedy about 3 kids stranded on a tropical island should have been a hit during Cartoon Network's prime years, but it became a forgotten footnote. The show couldn't compete with bigger CN hits like Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls, despite having a solid premise and decent animation. The characters lacked memorable personalities that made other Cartoon Network shows iconic. Mike was generic, Lou was annoying, and Og barely spoke, giving viewers nothing to connect with emotionally. The island setting had endless potential for adventures, but the writers never exploited it effectively. Episodes felt repetitive and predictable, lacking the creative spark that defined CN's best programming. The show's failure highlighted how competitive the network had become. Even decent shows couldn't survive if they weren't exceptional. This was an early warning sign that Cartoon Network's standards were slipping as they began greenlighting projects without the creative vision that made their earlier hits legendary. Hi, Puffy Amiyumi! This cartoon and live-action hybrid based on the Japanese pop duo was a confused mess that pleased nobody. The show mixed animated segments with real concert footage and celebrity appearances, creating a chaotic tone that didn't resonate with mainstream viewers. Kids couldn't connect with Japanese pop stars they'd never heard of, while actual fans of the band found the cartoon versions annoying and inaccurate. The animated segments were hyperactive and loud, lacking the sophisticated humor of successful CN shows. Mixed reviews plagued the series from the start, and the weird format alienated viewers who came to Cartoon Network for traditional animation. This represented the network's misguided attempts to capitalize on trends they didn't understand, showing how executives were losing touch with their core audience. The show's failure proved that celebrity endorsements and gimmicky formats couldn't substitute for solid storytelling and character development. Skatoony. This animated quiz show hybrid was one of the weirdest experiments in Cartoon Network history. The format combined live-action contestants with animated characters in a game show setting that nobody asked for. The weird format had niche appeal at best, and it only lasted a short run before being quietly canceled. Viewers tuning into Cartoon Network expected cartoons, not bizarre quiz shows with confusing rules and annoying hosts. The show felt like it belonged on a different network entirely, further contributing to CN's identity crisis during the mid-2000s. Skatoony represented executives throwing random concepts at the wall to see what stuck, rather than developing the original animated content that built the network's reputation. The failure showed that Cartoon Network was losing focus on what made them successful in the first place. Level Up. This mostly live-action show included animated segments that were supposed to bridge the gap between gaming and traditional television. The animated portions had low engagement from viewers, and the entire show didn't last long. This was another example of Cartoon Network's misguided venture into live-action content that alienated their core audience. Fans came to CN for cartoons, not live-action shows with animated elements thrown in as afterthoughts. The show's failure demonstrated that mixing formats rarely worked, and that the network was still struggling with their identity crisis years after it began. Elliot Kid. This European Cartoon Network production had limited North American appeal and quickly disappeared from schedules. The show failed to capture a US audience despite being well-produced for international standards. American viewers couldn't connect with the European sensibilities and humor, making it feel foreign and out of place on the network. This failure highlighted Cartoon Network's poor understanding of their domestic audience and their inability to successfully adapt international content for American viewers. The quick cancellation showed that the network was struggling to create content that resonated with their core demographic. Transformers. Animated. While technically successful in some metrics, this show represents the kind of mixed reception that plagued Cartoon Network during this era. Fans of classic Transformers disliked the art style and tone, feeling it didn't respect the franchise's legacy. The show ended after 3 seasons, despite having potential, showing how fan backlash could kill even decent programming. This failure demonstrated that Cartoon Network was struggling to balance nostalgia with innovation, often satisfying neither longtime fans nor new audiences. Robotomy. This sci-fi comedy cartoon lasted only 10 episodes before cancellation due to low ratings. The show about teenage robots in high school had a decent concept, but failed to execute it in a way that captured audiences. Poor marketing, inconsistent scheduling, and lack of network support doomed it from the start. Robotomy represented the network's inability to nurture new shows and give them time to find their audience, instead canceling everything that didn't immediately succeed. Symbionic Titan. Perhaps the most tragic failure on this list, this action sci-fi cartoon from Genndy Tartakovsky was critically praised but canceled after 1 season. The reason? Low toy sales and corporate politics rather than creative quality. The network prioritized merchandising potential over artistic merit, canceling a show that could have been legendary. This decision perfectly encapsulated everything wrong with Cartoon Network's corporate-driven approach. They had a masterpiece from one of animation's greatest creators and threw it away because it didn't sell enough action figures. The cancellation damaged relationships with creators and showed that CN no longer valued creative excellence over profit margins. Class of 3000. This music-themed cartoon created by Andre 3000 should have been a cultural phenomenon, but it only lasted 2 seasons despite its creative musical concept. The show had celebrity backing, innovative musical numbers, and educational value, but CN failed to promote it properly or give it the support it deserved. The network's poor handling of this unique property showed they didn't understand how to market shows that didn't fit traditional cartoon formats. Class of 3000's failure represented missed opportunities to create genuinely innovative content that could have set CN apart from competitors. Teen Titans Go! The most controversial entry on this list because technically it's been successful in ratings and longevity. However, it represents Cartoon Network's biggest creative failure and the destruction of everything the network once stood for. Teen Titans Go! Took beloved characters from the critically acclaimed Teen Titans and turned them into simplified, dumbed-down versions for cheap laughs. The show became CN's crutch, aired constantly in marathons that lasted entire days, driving away older viewers and creating a lazy programming strategy. While it made money, Teen Titans Go! Symbolized the network's abandonment of creative risk-taking and intelligent storytelling. The over-reliance on this one property showed that CN had become risk-averse and corporate-driven rather than creator-focused. Most damaging was how it prevented the original Teen Titans from continuing, as creators wanted to finish their story, but the network preferred the cheaper, easier option. Teen Titans Go! Represents everything wrong with modern Cartoon Network, prioritizing safe, profitable content over creative excellence and treating their audience like they couldn't handle sophisticated storytelling. These failures weren't just individual shows flopping, they represented a systematic destruction of what made Cartoon Network legendary. The network that once gave us Dexter's Laboratory, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, and Adventure Time became a corporate machine that prioritized merchandising over creativity, safe content over innovation, and short-term profits over long-term reputation. The constant executive changes, identity crisis, and misunderstanding of their audience turned the home of animation into just another corporate-owned channel struggling to find relevance. The saddest part is that many of these problems were self-inflicted. Cartoon Network had the resources, talent, and legacy to remain the king of animation, but corporate greed and executive incompetence destroyed what took decades to build. Was your favorite show canceled? Leave a comment below.